Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Yosemite Community College District Board of Trustees for Wednesday, August the 8th, 2018 to order. If I could get you to all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do have some items under 4.2 to report out from closed session, so I will let our learned Vice Chancellor of Human Resource to go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So report out for item 3.1, it's also on the public agenda, but as required by the government code, we will report that the appointment of public employee interim president of Modesto Junior College, the Board of Trustees by unanimous decision of those present to appoint Stephen Collins to serve as the interim president for Modesto Junior College effective July 17th, 2018 at an salary of $17,915.59 per month for as long as he's here with us.
And that was the only item we had to report out from closed session, so thank you. We'll now move on to item 4.3, the approval of minutes of the July 11, 2018 Board of Trustees regular meeting. I'll give my colleagues a few moments to look those over and then entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move we approve the minutes.
Moved by Trustee Hallinan, seconded by Trustee Rojas. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We'll now move on to public comment. I did receive one public comment card, but that individual is going to wait until that item is on the agenda and make his comments then. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on items that are not on the posted agenda? Okay, we'll dispense with that. Board committee reports, 5.1, Board Finance Committee. So the Board Finance Committee did meet this past Monday, August the 6th, 11 a.m. right here in the district office building. Trustee Viss was out of town and on vacation, but Trustee Rojas and I were present along with staff. We got a monthly finance update. We got an FTES update, and we received an update from our Vice Chancellor of Finance on the ever-moving funding formula from the state of California. So we kind of have an idea where we're at, but nothing is set directly in stone yet, but we kind of have a pretty good idea, and so we're fortunate that they've changed from their original position. So that's all I have. Trustee Rojas, would you like to add anything?
No, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Move on now to item 5.2, Board Policy Committee Report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The Board Policy Committee met on Monday to go over the items that are on the agenda, the second reading and the first reading. We had a fairly long meeting. We went a little overtime, but we had some very, very good discussions. And we have one policy that we presented to the board as a first reading last month and had no recommendations for changes, and it will come up again, and that is what Darren has the public comment card for. So the policy committee did a vote on what should happen to that, but it's up to the entire board, and we'll get in more detail on that. And we have one other academic procedure that we felt needed to have a little more work, but we'll go into the details when we get to the adoption of our policies.
Okay, any questions for Ann or Leslie?
Or Lynn.
Or Lynn, sorry, Lynn. Moving too fast sometimes. Get myself in trouble. Okay, moving on now to item 6, reports and information items. 6.1, grants presentation. Dr. Sarah Schrader, that's what it says. Our controller will present a report on our grant activities for fiscal year 17-18.
Good
Evening, everyone.
Is it doctor now?
It has been for a
Oh,
little.
it has, see, there I go,
Yeah.
in it again.
Oh, no problem. So this evening, I'm here to present to you the 17-18 year-end grant summary. I'm here this evening because Marie Enriquez, our grant manager, she retired effective August 1st. So I just wanted to share what our activities were in this area for the 17-18 fiscal year. I'm not going to go line by line, but I just kind of wanted to give you a high-level overview. For those of you that don't know, our grants office plays an integral role with our campus community to work on the review of the grant applications that are available for submission, the awards, the implementation of the grants, as well as the reporting, auditing, compliance, and closeout of those grants. So those are the roles that we play when the grants office assists the campuses. So as I've indicated, Marie, our grants manager, did retire. So during the reorg you saw, I believe in June, we have changed the role from grant manager to a grant compliance officer. And the reason that we did that is because the grant manager role was designed to write grants and to go and find grants for the campuses. However, that part of the job description hadn't been used for quite some time. And each of the campuses have their own folks that kind of lead that charge and more in the assisting charge, which is why we are currently recruiting for a grant compliance officer who will help more on the compliance, the reporting, as well as training for our grant folks out at the campuses. So we're looking forward to changing the way in which we still assist our campus communities. So just some highlights and accomplishments that occurred during the year. We did have to define some processes and procedures for our sub-grants and sub-recipient awards. The reason we had to do that is we had some changes in the federal compliance arena. We now actually have to go out and visit some of our grantees, make sure that they are running their piece of the program the way that it's intended to be run. So actually a few of our staff members actually went out to our partners and visited them and worked with them to ensure that everybody's in compliance. We have also developed a post-award procedure manual for the grants office staff. We've continued to provide trainings to our campus community, as well as some the project monitoring visits like I indicated, and then our grant staff are continuing to do their training because we are in the realm of never-ending compliance changes when it comes to grants. So we want to make sure that we stay up front on those changes. So over the year, we did see a decline in our grant funding. However, the reason I don't want to just solely focus on that is because we did have a significant increase in other funding sources. So although in the competitive grants arena, we saw a decrease of about 13% district-wide, we saw large increases in funding in terms of the Strong Workforce Program that came in, and that's through the State Chancellor's Office, as well as the Adult Education Program and Guided Pathways. So overall, we actually saw an increase in funding of about $5 to $6 million with those funds. So that's why it's hard with this. This snapshot is only for the competitive grants where we receive a lot of other funding that's coming down via new state initiatives that are coming. So with that, I just wanted to share with you on page number 6, you will see the grants that have been approved for continued funding for 18-19. Nothing new here in terms of, we still have our Title III at Columbia. That's a cooperative grant between Lake Tahoe and Columbia College, as well as the child care and the TRIO for both locations, and then for CDTC for the Central Services Office. For page number, page number 7, we do show the pending award notifications. We have one for each location. Columbia College, we're still waiting to hear about the launch grant, which is inspiring rural students in science, technology, engineering, and math, and that should be for about $650,000. We're still just waiting to hear what the results for that, and then also for MJC Title V, waiting to hear about that pending grant that was submitted. Any questions?
I have some questions. I don't have a page 7. Does everyone else have? Did you just get?
I'm sorry. Number 6, sorry.
Oh, okay.
About that.
Okay. And then this new position, I think when someone does retire, that's an excellent time for reorganization. Is it at the same salary?
No, no, we did drop it down. It's more of an entry-level management position rather than a higher-level position because grant writing is a unique niche that takes training and education and experience to do. Because we took those roles out, we definitely dropped down the position.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Well, I think you're up next.
next.
Yeah, just stay where you are.
Okay.
Stay where you are, Doctor. Let's
save a little time
move on to 6.2, the soft docs update.
Okay, great. So this evening, I've also been asked to provide you with a soft docs update, and there's been quite a bit going on in that project that's exciting. So just so that you know, we have had soft docs and their team come out a total of 5 times so far to do the discovery and the user training. And that user training has been for both the content management side as well as the creation of the forms and the workflow. 4 departments are now live with the eTrieve content management piece. So our AP, purchasing, payroll, and human resources departments are all live, meaning all of their data has been migrated from our old on-base system onto SoftDocs for the content management portion of the project. With that, we are able to scan documents and auto-populate data from colleague into eTrieve. So we are integrated in that, which drastically reduced the amount of data entry it comes to processing documentation. AP checks and purchase orders are automatically filed into eTrieve now via the printing process rather than having to print those checks manually, turning around and scanning them back in. It's all automated, printed electronically, and it scans automatically into the content management portion of eTrieve. And the reason that that is exciting is because with the utilization of all these automations and this little scanner that sits on everybody's desk now, AP alone is saving approximately 20 hours a week in just the manual scanning and filing into the electronic database. So we're excited about improved efficiencies in that area. We have had the training for creating the online forms and workflow process. We have worked on the direct pay request, the employee pay claim, employee absence forms, and of course, the travel request form. The travel request form is in process. We're working on the workflow piece of it. It's a little tricky because each of the locations has its own approval flow right now. At each campus, they're even a little bit different. So if we can try to streamline that in terms of our processes, we will be able to continue to move along with the finishing of the creation of that electronic form. But we are making progress and it's almost done. So that's exciting. That's exciting news for us. We're also in the process of establishing procedures and guidelines for creating the forms. We don't want pink forms or things flying in from the left and the right. So we're trying to create a set of guidelines and a view and a format for the forms. So for example, the header on the forms will be the 3 logos, which is similar to what we have going on with the website, and making sure that we are very similar in how we look. Let's see what else. eTrieve is an integrated solution. So once the forms are submitted, so all these electronic forms and workflow, once they're done and finalized, we're able to automatically scan them. So we don't have to do this manual scanning on the back end, which is also going to save some time. And so once we are done with all the forms and the implementation of these for the 4 departments we're currently working on, we will move forward with the rest of the central services departments and then head out to the college communities. So in terms of timelines, we're looking for training in late fall, training out to the end users in late fall on what forms are available out in SoftDocs. Here's how you fill them out, here's how they work, and then the workflow for those. And then hopefully for utilization of these forms in January, and then that's when we'll start the next round of implementation.
Wonderful.
Any questions? Okay.
I like how you said we're saving, 20 hours a week. That's substantial. And as you get more pieces,
Yes.
that's going to go up.
That's just one department with one piece of the
Yeah,
implementation.
absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you, Doctor.
Have a good evening.
We will now move on to item 6.3, the MJC pool incident update with our Vice Chancellor of Fiscal Services, Susan Yeager.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Chancellor, board members, and I'll tell you that I'm very hopeful that my asbestos consultant is going to walk in that door. But if he doesn't, I can finish the presentation. And he's supposed to be here in the next few minutes. So this is an update on the pool project, and we have very good news to report that we have 4 buildings back online as of today, including the library, the gym, PE offices, and women's PE. As of Monday, men's PE will be partially back online, mostly the areas related to the showers, locker rooms, team training room, so that our football players can continue training in that environment. We've continued to work with the MJC leadership on this project to open facilities as quickly as possible, which has been very helpful. Last evening, Dr. Alt toured with our facilities director, Judy Lanchester. They toured the site with our consultants so that it was very helpful because the consultants really got the sense from the college how important this was. I mean, we can say it, but when you have someone like Dr. Alt there, he's really impassioned about this. And then I think it was important for Dr. Alt to hear all of the steps that have to be considered for just one thing. There's a myriad of activity that has to take place. The plan for the pool over this time frame has been to keep the pool at a certain level to the extent possible without being able to move the water. So there has been, I think, 3 large quantities of chlorine dumped in at 3 different times. The mosquito abatement from City of Modesto was here today. They did say that there is no evidence of larvae or mosquito eggs. They do not recommend treatment at this time because it's a 90-day treatment, and we are planning on, the plan is to drain the pool fairly soon. Right now, we have a tentative date of August 14th for that. Meanwhile, that is a big deal to drain the pool. We have to be careful about the chemicals that are in it when the water's drained, the amount of water that we're releasing both into the water system. We need to work with both the City of Modesto and the Stanislaus County Health Department. And then there's also issues with the pool itself, how fast you drain water. And so all of that, we have a pool consultant who is helping us with that, and we'll be meeting next week to make sure that we have a plan for the pool, how we're going to move forward and return the pool to its prior state. So this is a large, very complex project, so we're very happy that we've been able to get this far, this quickly. I know our insurance company has been, we have been on the, we want it now, and our insurance company has been cautioning us, you need to slow down because there are just so many things that we have to consider so that we don't have unintended consequences. And so we've tried to be very careful, but at the same time, maintain a safe speed for returning facilities to the college to be able to serve our students. And it's particularly as we're getting ready for school to start, obviously that was of paramount importance. I want to take a few minutes to review some of the measures taken to ensure the buildings were safe to reenter. So once the explosion occurred, before anything happened, the buildings were evaluated and surface testing was done in each of the buildings to ascertain what was going on in them. And so low levels of chloride, so basically chlorine powder, was found only on the ground west of the gymnasium, so that's to be expected because that's kind of where the explosion occurred, on the pool deck, and then on surfaces in men's PE and the PE offices adjacent to broken windows. So that makes sense. There was a chlorine cloud, so anywhere there was a broken window nearby, it got in. They did not find indications that the muriatic acid had intruded on any of the buildings. There was a lot of dust and soot, so if you can imagine the explosion, it kind of shakes loose a lot of dust. And so it's still called nuisance dust because it's not, it doesn't have chemicals in it and whatever, but it's a lot more than you would normally have. And that had to be cleaned up because it's not really safe for people to go into buildings that has that much dust in it. So that had to be cleaned up. So there is no evidence or reason to believe that any asbestos containing material was disturbed, with the exception of a fire door at men's PE. And that was the door that was bent by either the explosion or the fire personnel, the emergency personnel when they came on site. But that asbestos material inside the door was not released into the building environment. So the cleaning protocol, all surfaces, horizontal surfaces, were HEPA vacuumed, then wet wiped, and then vacuumed again. So in abundance of caution, that was actually done in all the buildings, even though the evidence of chlorine powder was only found in 2 buildings closest to the blast site. The chemical hygienist recommended that people doing the cleaning protect their eyes and skin, and so, wear gloves and N95 respirators, which look a lot like paper masks to me, but I'm told they're stronger and they filter dust for those people doing the work. And once the buildings were cleaned, what we were noticing, we had already reoccupied the library, the gym, and PE offices, and we were noticing that the dust kept coming back. And so we figured out that it's from the HVAC system. So when the explosion happened, it kind of knocked dust loose inside those systems too. And so we have recleaned those buildings and put filters over the vents. Now, those filters are not going to be there forever, and as a matter of fact, we're hoping to have them by the end of this week, but we are monitoring to make sure that they are not taxing our systems too much. If they get taken off as of today, that would be fine. So I think so far we're doing okay. So asbestos, I'd like to talk about that again. There was no evidence, as I said, of any asbestos hazards in any of the building, men's PE included, but men's PE had sustained structural, door, and surface material damage to the extent that before we reopened that building, an air sample was taken, and we had a minimal but unexpected level of asbestos fibers in that test. So we consulted with our asbestos consultant, who you're going to hear from in a moment, and we did retest men's PE, and in an overabundance of caution, we revacated and tested the other 4 buildings. And I need to stress that at no time did we believe any asbestos materials had been disturbed in those buildings. However, we had already heard people ask the question, well, but that building had it, and I'm in these buildings, what if? And sometimes perception is, it's a powerful thing, and you can't ignore people's psychic discomfort. And so to assure the building occupants, we chose to vacate those buildings, test those buildings so that they could enter the buildings again with confidence that there was no asbestos issues in the building. And that, by the way, was, I forgot to mention, all 5 buildings passed with levels way below the Cal OSHA standards. So with that, we have Chris. Hi, Chris. We were going to get Mike or Chris. So we've got Chris Ciponeri, and he's the Chief Operating Officer of Hazard Management Services, and I may have got that last name wrong, but they're going to talk to us more about you a little bit more, the testing that took place, and the district has worked with HMS for a number of years on asbestos-related projects, so you may have heard their names before. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Ciponeri. As Susan said, I'm the COO for Hazard Management Services here in Modesto. Regarding the testing that Susan brought up, we returned to all 5 buildings. So this is the PE offices, men's PE, women's PE, library, and gymnasium, the evening of August 2nd. And what we did is we collected personal air samples. So these are samples that are required by Cal OSHA to show that someone's not being exposed above what's called the permissible exposure limit for asbestos. We collected those all on HMS employees wearing proper personal protection equipment. And what we did is tried to simulate the activities taking place to the greatest extent in those buildings. So mopping floors, vacuuming carpets, changing door hardware out, adjusting lights, those kind of items we tried to simulate while we were inside the buildings with these samples on. And then what we also did was simulate the tasks that would be normal in that building. So like I did the sampling in the library, so I flipped through magazines, opened books, sat in the different areas of the library just to make sure that we are going above and beyond any sampling protocols and simulating what the real use of those buildings would be. The gymnasium, played a little basketball, weight room, in the women's PE, lifted some weights, stuff like that. So what we found in doing our testing, which was roughly for 3.5 hours in each building, is that our samples came back between less than 0.007 fibers per cc and less than 0.018 fibers per cc. For comparison to the Cal OSHA level, where they say you do not have to wear a respirator, is 0.1 fibers cc. So we are, 10 times less than that to 100 times less than that in our levels. Well below any regulatory thresholds for reoccupancy or, like I said, safety concerns. As part of that, we also collected the short-term exposure, which is compared to 1.0. And again, that was less than 0.045. And that's a 30-minute short-term exposure sample. The results we did have were all below the lab's limited detection also. So the results could have been lower than that, but the lab's level of detection limits them to saying that's how low it would be. As Susan said, we do have filters now installed in all the buildings. As she mentioned, we do believe the explosion kind of rocked the HVAC duct systems. So we did have some soot and some dust that was coming out of those ducts, just that had been settled over the years. ATI is in the process of cleaning that. At this point, what we have done is the women's PE has been completely cleaned. It still has filters installed, but it's open for reoccupancy at this point. They started in the men's PE building today, re-cleaning it. Again, a lot of this cleaning is just to be overcautious to make sure that we do not have an issue with anyone reoccupying the buildings. And that will continue after they do some cleaning over at the library. We've also done some minimal cleaning at the library to allow reoccupancy of some offices, and I know custodial staff has cleaned it, and at this point, they'll have another detail cleaning going back after that again. So that's kind of where we stand right now with the project as is. Okay.
That is the pool update for this evening, unless you have any questions, which we'd be happy to answer.
Do we have any more information on what caused the explosion?
We do not have a report yet, so the investigation has been done. They actually did, I don't know if I told you this last time, if I knew, but the fire investigator brought the manufacturer of the tank, and then the person who installed, the company who installed the tank, and the company who filled the tank. They were all on site and did an investigation together. Pieces were taken off-site, but the official report has not yet been done. Our staff has been interviewed, and so that's what we know right now.
Do you know when you're going to get the report?
No, I do not.
Okay.
And actually, when I talked to the fire investigator, he said he didn't know if the insurance company was going to ask for a written report. So that's something I have to follow up on with ASKIP, and I will do that.
Do we know how old the equipment was?
The tank that actually blew up was only a week old. The equipment itself was only installed about 6 years ago because it was sort of a new system out there. So that's basically the answer. You know, what the tank was feeding from was the mechanicals were about 6 years old, and the tank was a week old, to week and a half. Anything else?
Any more questions for Susan? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to item 6.4, association reports, and we'll first start off with our student senate activity reports.
Good evening, members of the board. I would like to start the report with our upcoming event, which is tomorrow for first-time in college students. ASMGC members will be handing out food and welcoming the students. The event will take place in MSR building on West Campus. ASMGC members just came back from the summer training session. It was a great learning experience. We participated in several leadership activities, and all of them taught us various important lessons, which we will be applying in the student government. We also created goals for our upcoming year. Currently, ASMGC members are attending a 3-day transformational workshop led by Erica Ormsby, who is the local author of international bestseller book called I'm Happy, Healthy, Free. Ms. Ormsby is an inspiring author who truly believes in transformation and is helping the ASMGC members to discover their full potential. And that's all I have for you today. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any more questions? No, thank you. Columbia.
So the Associated Students of Columbia College would like to report that they are holding a workshop for incoming Senate members Tuesday, August 14th, and that they are excited to be involved in the new student welcome event on August 25th, along with all the Welcome Week activities during the first week of school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? All right. We'll move on now. LTAC has no report this evening. And we'll move right down to the Yosemite Faculty Association. Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Solomon, president of the Yosemite Faculty Association. What do the following numbers have in common? 2, 19, 40, 10, and 0. No, they are not part of a bizarre twist of some mathematical Fibonacci sequence. Instead, they represent very real-world outcomes to faculty within the Yosemite Community College District. In under 2 weeks from today, full and part-time faculty will attend various new faculty orientations, as well as in-service and Institute Day workshops. The YFA will be providing clear updates to the faculty about the current lack of urgency by the district to settle our contract. Additionally, the YFA will be hosting faculty luncheons at Columbia's In-Service Day and MJC's Institute Day to provide further updates as we prepare for the coming weeks. In 19 days, both colleges are scheduled to begin the first day of the fall semester. It boggles the mind about how the YCCD continues to allow a possible train wreck which affects our students, our communities, and the faculty to continue this path. This demonstrates an utter disregard to proactively fix this and repair the damaged relationships between the district and the faculty that will occur long after this preventable embarrassment has eventually ended. In 40 days, the YFA and YCCD are scheduled for fact-finding. After months of wasting the faculty's time during negotiations, as well as the wasted resources on both sides during this process, we are now entering a new low in the Yosemite Community College District. Right when the faculty think this district has reached the floor in this scenario, we discover a basement. And now we have discovered a bunker underneath that. How much farther down does this go, and where is the district leading this? In 10 days following the fact finder's report, and if no agreement has been reached, the faculty will then have the legal right to exercise a strike. The administration can get positive momentum here, but so far we have received radio silence. And the board can, in behalf of the communities and constituents represented in your respective districts, direct the district administration to avoid carelessly risking further long-term damage to both of our colleges. Finally, the number 0 is the statistic which summarizes the status quo, because the Yosemite Community College District has done absolutely nothing to avoid getting us to this point. This is what our communities get in return for paying out large six-figure incomes to the district administration responsible for getting us to this fact-finding stage. Nothing.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Okay, we'll move on now to 4, California School Employees Association, CSEEA. Sherry?
Negotiate well having to follow him, so we need to renegotiate that. Good evening, everybody. My board presentation tonight is 3 different things. One, CSEA is looking forward to wrapping up negotiations, so we're hoping we're getting to the end of that. Number 2, we're looking forward to more information on the MJC presidential search, on process and timelines. Thank you to Chancellor Yong for his email on July 16th with some information in regards to the search consultants. The potential timeframes and important dates were discussed, and that when things were finalized, the leadership of various constituencies would be notified. So we're looking forward to that information. The third thing I want to talk about is I attended the CSEA Union conference last week in Sacramento. This was my first conference. There was over 1,471 delegates in attendance at the conference, with a total of attendance of 1,926 people, which included retirees, delegates, honor roll visitors, and staff. This year's theme was I'm In. With the uncertainties of what the Supreme Court ruling on Janus will mean for unions, the theme is to remind people that the union is not only about politics, resolutions, but about members' rights as a family and compassion. It was a very interesting experience. I received a lot of good information, was able to attend the community college presentation with Chancellor Oakley. One thing that really stood out to me was the focus on family and compassion. Every year at conference, there is a collection of monies from chapters, raffles, and passing around the hat that goes towards the Dorothy Bjork Fund. This fund was created to help members in need when disaster strikes. This year, a little over $50,000 was received at conference, which will mean that over 50 people who are affected by these fires will receive at least $1,000 apiece. Now, these fires hit close to home with me. My dad just lost his cabin up at the Dardanelles fire. My son's a firefighter. He's been out at the Ferguson fire. And I don't tell you that for any particular reason other than to say we all have stresses in our lives outside of our work, along with work situations. So last week, towards the end of the week, when my phone and my emails started blowing up about in regards to the second closure and pulling people back out of buildings, caused a lot of anxieties, and rightfully so. So after many phone calls and emails and working with the MJC VPs, presidents, and district personnel, we were able to talk through the issues and get things done. So I would like to thank personally the following: Susan, Judy Lancaster, Chancellor Yong, for listening to our concerns, working through the needing processes, and further testings. I would also like to thank Steve Collins, Al Alt, Jennifer Zellett, and James Todd for talking with our members, hearing the concerns, having the compassion to do what was right in the situation. So as the theme at conference was I'm in, I also want to add the theme that I've been using on all of my CSEA correspondence with we are better together. So I just want everybody to know that as we go through these life situations, we don't know what people are having happen at their home life. So work and stress at the work life adds a whole different ball games to things. So again, thank you for listening, hearing our members, hearing their fears, and following through to try to calm those fears. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Any questions for Sherry? No, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the faculty representative to the board, Alan McKissick. We've earmarked an hour, so go ahead, Alan. We're good.
I'll yield a lot of that time
Okay.
to the following items on the agenda. But this week I got a greater appreciation for all the hours board members put into their roles because I was there for some of them. I attended the board policy committee meeting, and I was impressed at how thorough the discussion was in our policy review, and furthermore, the obvious value put on faculty input. I attended earlier today board study session, which included self-evaluation and setting board priorities. I thought it was a very candid and professional discussion, and like I said at the time, I was not only a faculty member sitting there, but also a voter and a taxpayer, and I was favorably impressed. I want to mention that Steve Collins was the division dean who hired me a long time ago. There came a time, I won't say how many decades, there came a time when he was serving as a vice president, and I told him that he should manage to become president of MJC. I thought he was not taking me seriously enough at the time, and today I had the pleasure of telling him, I told you so. One of the initiatives at MJC that I have mentioned before is the CEP Voter Registration and Education Committee's fall program, which works in partnership with the League of Women Voters and Associated Students of MJC. I think you're going to see a lot of activity and a lot of newly registered voters this fall. I'll have to get back to you on one of our efforts to facilitate a public debate between Representative Jeff Denham and challenger Josh Harder. That is proving even more challenging than we expected, but we're not going to give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And we joke a lot, Alan, but I do appreciate not only your follow-up, but your deep interest in what's right for the community college. So thank you very much. If you have a question, you always follow up and call me, and I appreciate our dialogue, so thank you.
The feeling's quite mutual.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the Academic Senate activity reports, and I'm looking at Curtis. You just have one report this evening, right, Curtis? You want to take the balance of Alan's time?
Yes, I will. Good evening, board. Welcome, new presidents. Hi, Henry, Darren, all of you. I had a restful summer, so hopefully my batteries are recharged. I'm representing actually the Academic Senate President of Columbia College, who could not be here. So I will read his report. I will not make any comments because I can't fill in the holes here. And then I'll make a short comment about MJC. So Columbia College is proud to report the following. The Academic Senate will be facilitating the following activities for the upcoming weeks and months. A faculty retreat on August 17th from 9 to 3 p.m. Site was originally to be Baker Station, but is subject to change depending on local fire warnings. The theme is Mindsets to Mindshift. And it's going to be based, I'm guessing, a book by Mindshift by author Dr. Barbara Oakley. Also, strategic planning for successful adjunct faculty and all staff in-service days, finding ways to enhance the faculty hiring and the prioritization process, assigning mentors to new faculty on campus for the fall-spring semesters, and finally, continue to help in the accreditation follow-up report process. And that's Columbia for you. I'm happy the semester's starting. I never do well in the summers. It's too much time on my hands, I guess. But I want to say that MJC has been working all summer long, the institution. And this last week, I've had an opportunity to meet with Steve and talk about the faculty perspective of what's going on. Also, we've had meetings on accreditation, especially the regular and effective contact of online education, which is a very interesting discussion, but we're moving forward on that. And finally, also, the issue of guided pathways. Our Institute Day or in-service day at the end of this month is going to be dedicated to that. And I want to make a call out at all the people who have worked very, very, very hard at ensuring that this happens on a timely manner. We've presented already the timeline we have for implementation of guided pathways. But Rob Stevenson, who is the faculty, I guess, co-chair, what's his title finally? Did we decide on a title? Yeah, Pathways co-lead, and Tina Hiron, also another Pathways co-lead from the student services side, and Jennifer Sellett, and James Todd, and even Al is in there sometimes. I'm not sure why, but he is. So I come into the semester with a lot of enthusiasm, a little bit worried about all the sort of issues around negotiations. But I think we're moving in a very, very positive direction. My hope is that we will get a precedent soon because we have a lot of work to do and we need to sort of settle in. I just want to say, and I don't know if this is relevant or not, in 2011, the board hired a president who turned out to be the worst thing that happened to this institution in multiple ways. He's now been fired or quit. I don't know if you saw the newspaper. He has been accused of all kinds of harassments. But I want to tell the board how important it is for us to have stability. It is essential to have the kind of stability that leads to sort of the programs that we're trying to institutionalize. Everything we're doing is long range. We have an educational master plan, and that needs good leadership, and it needs consistency. And I think it was sort of a reaction that we didn't hire somebody this time is sort of, we went through the interim period where everyone was an interim, no one was firm, and a lot of things could not be done at the institution. So I urge you to help us as soon as possible bring stability to, but Steve, of course, is Mr. MJC. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Any questions for Curtis? Oh, you're good. Thank you. Okay, moving on now to activities and announcements. Columbia College. Our new president, I'm going to give this a try. President Santanu Bandyopadhyay.
That's great, President Garrett.
I'll stick with chair. Don't overload me here. So. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would not like that title as well. So,
I stand corrected. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Good evening, Chancellor. Good evening, colleagues from MJC, Columbia College, and Central Services. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the president of Columbia College. It has been an exciting 3 weeks on the job for me. As I am settling into my position, my first observation is the welcoming nature of the campus at Columbia College. I have enjoyed a truly warm reception so far. The acceptance in the community is something that has really caught me by surprise. I did not anticipate to make so many positive connections in the first couple of weeks. Here are some of the highlights of my first 3 weeks. I met with the officials, members, of Sunrise Rotary, Sonora Business Council, the Foundation Board of Columbia College, City Council members, Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority, and Mother Lode Workforce Development during the first 2 weeks. It's a pretty long list. I also attended the inaugural Central Sierra Economic Development Summit, where representatives from the neighboring counties, as well as California Association for Local Economic Development, or CalED, were present. The initial interactions indicate that there are opportunities to enhance our collaboration with different agencies to improve the infrastructure and develop a trained workforce to attract potential employers to our area. Enrollment so far has been positive compared with the last year. Summer enrollment was slightly down by about 12 FTEs when I was preparing this report, and fall was up by about 40 FTEs, again at the same time. It's subject to change, of course, as we come closer to the semester beginning. I'm expecting we will see maybe slight enrollment growth, and we have been pursuing strong relationships with the local high school districts. The gain in enrollment, if any, is reflective of the collective good work that has gone into the college. We are preparing to welcome students back to the campus for fall semester in 3 weeks. My first interaction with the students will be on Saturday, August 25, with the event Pizza with the President. It will be held on campus from noon to 1:30 p.m. Please join me in welcoming the students back on campus if you happen to be in the area. On Friday, September 28, the Brady Wise Family Plaza dedication ceremony will take place from 1 to 4 p.m. to recognize the charitable contribution of $2 million by the Family Foundation to our college foundation. This generous gift will enable us to provide access to many local students in the first year promise scholarships. The 50th anniversary of Columbia College is coming up on Saturday, September 29th, to celebrate our 50th anniversary. We are showcasing the campus to the community. The festivities will begin at 11 o'clock. There will be a picnic where 6 local food vendors will participate. The community members will have an opportunity to tour the campus, take part in fun and festivities, and we are just firming up the plans for that, what kind of options would be there for them. The distinguished staff and alumni who are on campus will be recognized. There is one thing that's not in your written report I would like to add. It just happened over the last weekend as the Donnell fire kind of encapsulated some of the areas of Donnell Lake and Dardanelles area. We were concerned about our Baker's Stations facility, which is about 3.5 to 4 miles down from there. Fortunately, our faculty leader, Professor Tom Hofstra, were there with 10 students, and Tom was an exemplary leader in terms of saving the students, guiding them out of that area. They had a long route, a 2-hour drive became something like a 6-hour drive over Sonora Pass and back onto the campus. As of this morning, as we understand, the facilities are still standing safe. We are watching this situation, not that we can do much. Hopefully, Baker Station would survive to see another day. I will keep you posted. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Any questions for the President of Columbia College? All right, thank you again. We'll move on now to President Steve Collins.
Members of the board, fellow employees and citizens who are here, I think before I start my report, I should remind my friend Alan and colleague Alan that what I said to him in that day a long time ago was, I don't think I would ever try to become president of Modesto Junior College. And I didn't try, but I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to do something I had never planned to do. And I hope I will serve your interest and the interest of the students in this community well in the short time I will be there. At any rate, I promise you that the first rule I'm going to follow is the first line of the Hippocratic Oath, which is first do no harm, and I will try very hard to do that. We've got, and I also want to thank the people of MJC for giving me such a warm welcome back to the institution. Their support and encouragement has been very important in a kind of scary point in my life, and I'm deeply grateful. MJC, like Columbia, is getting back fully on track. I just want to list some activities that are coming up for your interest. We've got the Classified Staff Appreciation Breakfast, which is Wednesday, August 15th. And on that day, members of the management and administration serve tasty, custom-prepared omelets to members of our superb classified staff who are so supportive of all of the activities at the college. I'm afraid we're not as good a chef as they are doing what they do for the institution. We have our scholarship ceremony planned for August 16th. At that time, we will be awarding 400 scholarships and almost $290,000. And before this year is fully over, in 2017, we hope we'll have awarded about 850 scholarships worth approximately $800,000. The annual football kickoff dinner is coming up on Saturday, August 18th at 6 p.m. in the Ag Pavilion. There will be a delicious dinner, an auction, and some time to socialize. And I should point out that tickets are $50, and not only do you get a good meal and a chance to renew old friendships, you get a free season pass to the MJC football season. Fall Institute Days have already been mentioned. They are full of activities connected to things like pathways and a lot of the, I'm going to go a little aside here, pathways and all of the remarkable developments in curriculum development that I stepped into when I stepped into my current office. It's going to be I'm really looking forward to that day because it's going to be very educational to me in terms of developing a better understanding of educational developments at this time. We have also our transfer day and college night, at which we will have 65 colleges and universities represented, and high school students and college students are invited to come and become well informed about the places which they might want to attend. So it's a busy start of the year for the college, and we are off and running, and we're back in some buildings that we weren't in this time last week.
Okay, President Collins, thank you very much. Any questions for the president? All right, thank you. We'll move on now to...
Excuse me?
Yes?
Yeah, I want to add something relating to a couple reports I just heard. When I was in the board study session earlier, I saw one of the priorities the board has taken on. I wish I had it in front of me, but it ran something like the board would like to facilitate a culture in which people treat others as they themselves would like to be treated. And I thought that was very profound. Easy to say, but if you're serious about making it happen, and I think you are, that starts at the top of the college and the top of the district. It absolutely must. And furthermore, I'm glad Curtis spoke truth to that particular issue. It needs to be prioritized, and I'm pretty confident it will be. And one of the first people to model that as a leader to me at this college was Steve Collins.
All right, thank you, Alan. Now we'll move on to the Yosemite Community College District Chancellor Young and his update.
First of all, I want to announce that we are already planning for the staff recognition dinner for the next round in 2019. So we are asking everyone to save the date for April 12th at the Jean Bianchi Community Center in Oakdale. The one this year was a great success, and it was because of the work of so many people. So the committee is already looking ahead to the next event, and the date has been selected. The MJC presidential search, I am pleased to announce that the dates and timeline are being finalized as I speak. We will be notifying the leaders of the various constituency very soon. Our goal is to have the process completed before the end of fall so that the new president would be able to commence in the spring. I want also to take this opportunity to thank President Steve Collins for accepting this role. And also, I want to thank President Banyo Padhe for accepting this opportunity to serve. And I look forward to working with both presidents. And from both colleges, I have heard that preparation for fall semester is well underway. And I want to thank the instructional staff and the support staff for preparing to serve our next cycle of students who will be coming in and those who will be returning. I know there's a lot of work, but that is what we want to do best to serve our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Young. Any questions for Chancellor Young? Okay, we'll move on now to item 6.8, the bond update.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Chancellor Young. In your packet, you received a brief update on the projects. There's also a schedule and the end of fiscal year financial update. If you have any specific questions on the documents, I can go ahead and answer them now, or if you like, I can go straight into the presentation and get started.
I think probably just go straight into the presentation.
Okay, it's going to be quick and short. We're coming to the tail end. Sorry. The first project is parking lot 208, which is the parking lot to the east of the El Capitan building. And this one is still in the award phase. We're scheduled to start construction at the end of August. So you'll start seeing activity out there. And this one, the existing stalls, there's 95 stalls. Once the project is complete, you'll be gaining 70 parking stalls for a total of 165. The next project is the painting projects that are remaining on West Campus. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 4 are complete. Right now, we are working on Phase 3, which is actually split into two components. Yosemite Hall, Sierra Hall, and the Science Dome are still on hold as far as moving forward with the bidding because of the water intrusion issues that were encountered at Yosemite and Sierra Hall. But we are scheduled to meet with the design team and review and the recommendations that they're providing so that we can hopefully get back on track and complete the painting of those buildings. We did include a couple of slides of the dairy unit, which was painted, and then as well as the Miwok building, and there's the little Dunton house that was painted as well. That was well received. And then the Wawona Child Care Center. Next is the Great Valley Nature Lab, and this one, it's pending award because the bids did come significantly over budget. We did receive 4 bids. The apparent low bidder requested to withdraw their bid because of a clerical error. But through this process, we did meet with the contractor and the district to identify some value engineering items that would not affect the educational component of the project. We went back to the committee, presented the options that were identified, and the committee did agree to entertain those ideas. So we've identified a significant amount to help bring the budget or the project back closer to budget. Unfortunately, we still have some funds that are needed, and so later on in the board agenda, you'll see a request for budget augmentation.
Excuse me, was that the second low bidder that you met with on that?
Yes, the second low bidder.
I have a question on that. I don't seem to have that in my packet. Does, no one seems to have that. I'd like to have a
Presentation?
copy of the Great Valley Nature Lab, what you have on there.
Okay. The presentation or the
No, the picture.
Oh, okay. Oh, it didn't come through? Oh,
Okay.
okay, yes, we can.
Oh, okay, that's this one. I'd
Yeah,
like,
we'll get that over to you.
thank you.
If you look on Board Docs, it is on the online version, so there was just an error in printing, so.
And the next project, it's the Juniper Building up at Columbia, and this is the actual final building upgrade that is taking place. This one is out on the streets right now, so it bids next Tuesday. And a brief, quick scope description, it's mainly interior work only, with new ceiling tiles, new painting of the walls, replacing all the data drops, new furniture, and new flooring. And it is scheduled to start this fall, and it will complete this fall. And that is the last project. So if you have any additional questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I have a quick question, and I'll start with an apology. If this has been covered, forgive me. But on the page with all the painting schedules, all those different phases, are we painting outside and inside?
No, this is exterior painting only.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So parking lot 208, so it's post-bid phase. When will that be completed, you think?
It's a 90-day duration, so it will be completed in the November timeframe.
Okay, and then for staff, yes, sir?
I just have a question about, apparently phase 3 was Sierra Hall, Yosemite, Will those be completed before classes start?
We do not know yet. It depends on the recommendation for the fix. We are shooting to get these projects done before the end of the year, but as far as it getting done before students get back to school, no. Well, once we get through the planning phase, we will take the classroom classes into consideration because we do want to minimize the disruption to the faculty, staff, and the students, because the students are the priority.
Okay, so I guess just for staff, since we're bringing a lot of new parking spaces online, just as an observation, are we seeing an increase in students, particularly on the West Campus, utilizing the increased parking? I take the silence as a no. Well, yeah, I mean now, right, right. I'm, we have to follow the rules. I know.
Right now, since the parking lot is new and it came online towards the very end of the semester, beginning of summer, we haven't seen the population over there. We'll have to take a look and see what happens in the fall, and we'll be able to record that and see how efficient and how the students are using that. I think students will like the entrance off of Blue Gum a lot and not using the brink, even though it's further away, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Plus, when parking lot 208 goes down, we'll probably see an advanced population over here, so we'll have to see how that works. One of the other things that Dr. Alt and I have been working on
is also a parking area behind Sierra Hall to accommodate Michael staff that will be misplaced in that area as well.
Okay, because I know we've talked about before to come up, if we don't see an increased use, to come up with some plan, a parking committee, we've talked about that, primarily with, staff and students, to come up with some ideas about how we can incentivize, more use of our parking lots, because as you pointed out in the past, Judy, and Dr. Alt has as well, from a public safety standpoint, we'd rather have them use the parking lots because they're not crossing the street and it's more lighting and well lit for their own safety. So, if we don't see that uptick, I would be very supportive of you and Dr. Alt and others and driven with student input to come up with some plans to see how we can incentivize the use of our parking, because we put it in there for the students and we'd like to see them use it. So, okay, that's all.
I have one
Oh,
last
stand
question,
by.
and I apologize. Would you give an explanation of what recladding is, please?
Recladding is they will be removing the existing exterior wood around the El Capitan and then installing new metal aluminum siding. So that's typically the term that the design team's using.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope, that's it. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on now to item 7, action items consent agenda. And I've had a request already to pull item 7.7, which is the personnel adjunct faculty appointments, because trustee DeMartini would like to make a comment about one of the people being appointed on that list. So let's go ahead and approve the.
We don't actually need to pull it. I don't want to vote on it separately, but I want to make some comments about it. So do you want to vote first, or?
No, I want to hear
Okay.
your comments.
Well, someone contacted me on the list of the adjuncts that someone whose name is on this list has come all the way from Columbia to be here when he gets appointed, as assuming the board will do this, as an adjunct. And we have on the name for Columbia College under automotive technology, I'm going to say Chaiwat, who's sitting in the front row, and he's going to be working with Eric Andal. Eric told me that Chaiwat is a rock star, and I'm thrilled that he's so excited. So I just think I'd like to have us recognize him. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
And you're originally from? And we're welcome to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining our college community. We appreciate it. And with that, we will bring it back to the board to approve the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything else or talk about anything else before we
Just one
vote?
correction.
Yes.
Chair Garrett, under, I'm looking for it, appointment classified probationary, Anthony Estrada, custodian, facility planning and operations, not Columbia College. That should be CS for central services. All the custodians are in central services.
And we also have under item 7.2 purchase orders, we've had some duplications under the purchase orders, so we have some corrections.
Yes, on page 3, we have 2 purchase orders that were repeated. So the actual, we have the purchase of 6 vehicles, replacement vehicles, and we purchased new, but we did not purchase them twice. So if you go to the 7th and 8th, I believe it is. Yeah, the 7th and 8th purchase orders on that page are duplicates, and the actual total amount of the purchase orders is $254,788.
Okay, so with those additions and corrections, bring it back to the board to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved by trustee Rojas. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, We're going to have to flip a coin. No, well, you've already had your chance, Tom. We'll give it to Ann this time. So first by trustee Rojas, second by trustee DeMartini. Is there any further questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We'll move on now to item 8, action items for discussion. 8.1, board policy, second reading. And before we get into that, I want to turn it over to an individual who turned in a comment card in the beginning and agreed to have this item or have his comments heard when the item was come up on the agenda, and that's faculty member Jim Hohen. And he's addressing policy 4-8067. And he has some handout materials as well.
Hey, Jim?
I have my copy.
Thank you.
Board Act 8067, sectarian, partisan, and denominational teaching as amended. This is a very important policy, and it has been brought before the board to cancel and erase. The rationale that has been given for this was that the terms in this policy, which you'll find on the first page in normal type, not the bold underlined, that this policy has terms that are duplicated elsewhere. If you look on the very last page of the handout, you will see 3 different policies that supposedly are duplications of 8067. And if you look carefully, they are not. There's no overlap whatsoever in most of it. So it's simply not true, the claim that this should be eliminated because it's a duplication. And even if it was, the idea of duplicating something that's that important should not be an issue. In fact, it should be a benefit to be able to bring forward in a single, concise statement what we expect of our faculty and staff. So based on that, we should not redline the entire policy. Now, what you'll see on the first page and the second page a bit where there's a rationale for keeping this policy with amendments. On Monday, we spent nearly an hour and a half discussing this, and it seemed to be the consensus of the group, in fact, unanimously, I believe, that the policy should be retained with some modifications. Now, the amendments that are written here are a good start. But again, the committee decided that it would be better that if we had a little bit more wordsmithing, especially on paragraph 2, that would be talking about the faculty's rights of academic freedom. Now, in addition, earlier this spring, we voted in Academic Senate at MJC a very similar set of amendments to this policy. Unfortunately, it was turned down by 1 vote, which should tell us all that it's a very important policy to a lot of faculty. The main pushback was from faculty who said they were concerned about limiting any of their academic freedom. In fact, one faculty member approached me and said, "You can't tell me, nobody's going to tell me what to say in my classroom." I think that's an issue, especially if it's browbeating a student. I call that student abuse. So they turned it down by 1 vote, mainly because of issues concerning academic freedom. If you look at the second paragraph, it's been modified since the Senate had a look at it. This is not the same amendment that the Senate voted on, which says there shall be no attempt to intentionally destroy or weaken a student's faith. And then the addition, however, nothing shall restrict faculty's academic freedom to present related course subject material that may conflict with students' beliefs, while acknowledging the existence of different opinions and respecting the right of others to hold those views. I think that would handle any of the, or at least most of the concerns that faculty may have had. And if this version had been presented to the Senates, I believe they would pass it. So I'm asking, I'm not sure what your policy is here right now. You're going to vote on it, you're going to delay it. It would be wonderful if one of the members of the group would request that it be postponed until, following the committee's recommendation, until the Senate's can look at it one more time and any of the modifications and amendments be looked at one second time. Any questions?
We could pull it and.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. It doesn't matter by how many votes it passed. That's what shared governance is. Trump lost by 3 million votes. He still got elected because he won the
Electoral college.
Yes, exactly. So it doesn't matter. I'm also concerned about process, okay? Your committee is a committee that studies, but should take the recommendation in your own policies, board policy 78049, decisions about educational program development, student preparation and success, and curriculum are wholly within faculty's purview. It's not your decision, ultimately, unless there's a grave fiscal issue or puts the school in legal harm. I'm not sure how this does it. So the recommendation, we have a faculty member who disagreed with the decision. That's now how we do shared governance. The discussion was a little bit more profound than was described here, although he is right. There's profound concerns of who gets to decide what is or isn't allowable in the classroom. And that's always the question. Who's going to judge that? And the comments that Jim made during the Academic Senate almost made it seem like it would be up to the student to decide what's allowable and not allowable. And that goes straight in the face of what academic freedom should mean. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.
I would have to disagree with some of the comments you just heard. Academic Senate has a right to present its material. The board is supposed to have, just lost the word for a second here.
Are you looking for responsibility?
I'm sorry?
Are you looking for the word responsibility? The board has a responsibility?
Well, a board has a responsibility, and rely primarily was the term I was searching for. You're supposed to rely primarily, but not exclusively, to what the Senate says. I think this is a policy that is very important, protecting students' rights, protecting students' beliefs. It's not held anywhere else in the policies. And whether you want to delay it or not is up to you. That would make a little more shared governance. What I'd love to see is that it be amended and adopted as written tonight. That part is up to you.
Can we?
Can't do that anyway.
And per board policy, that means unless it's written in the policy, if you would like to look at it, it says unless great fiscal or legal. It doesn't say if it's written. So it's under mutual agreement.
I'd like to say that one of the major responsibilities of this board is to develop policy. That is one of our major charges. We have a constituent group, and the board committee felt that eliminating this policy was not in the best interest of our students, but it was suggested, and I agree with it, that although the board has the right to change this, the policy recommends to the full board would have to agree. That's why I don't think it should be done tonight, because they haven't had any time to look at it. But it is the board responsibility to make policy, and the three members on the board policy committee felt that this was worth taking another look at, but we didn't want to unilaterally impose it. We thought perhaps with the changes, and we spent a lot of time talking about how academic freedom versus indoctrination, it's not a simple policy. It's not easy, but I really believe that is the authority of the board, but we wanted to send it back for consideration because we don't want to unilaterally impose it. You're not, I don't recognize you. It's up to the chair.
Well, step up to the, please.
That you need to read your own board policy and what it says. Mutual agreement means that. And mutual agreement means that it's mutually agreed upon unless hardship of some kind occurs. So 3 board members have decided to take the best minds of our institution. It's gone through the governance process, and for political reasons, because
You
that
have
was
no proof of that.
Well, I have the arguments, and we have the recordings of Jim during, and there were political arguments.
Politics is addressed also in this
it's
sectarian.
political arguments. So could you please listen to what the arguments are? Nobody is against bad teaching. Bad teaching is bad teaching. And we didn't disagree that some of the things that Jim brought into the cloud, it's bad teaching. But you have a contradictory policy of allowing the most contradictory ideas to come into the classroom and having the freedom without having somebody looking over your shoulder and telling you that that shouldn't occur. It is a dangerous precedent. We talk about freedom of speech. I'm not even talking here about academic freedom and the ability to be able to put the most controversial ideas out there. And if students can't deal with that, then what? I mean, the whole point is to create the critical minds to be able to challenge those ideas, to inform themselves, to be educated, whether that idea goes against their beliefs. Presenting a belief doesn't mean it's going to change anyone. If it changes somebody, it's because on their own they decided to change it, not because anyone is making them change those ideas. It's sort of a little bit arrogant to believe that we have that capability of changing students. I wish that were the case, but that is not the case. We do. Isn't that what we do in education? So here's for very specific. The examples that Jim used is because...
I don't know what examples he used then. You were not at our meeting and listened to the hour discussion.
I understand, but I know what the discussion
You're making assumptions about what happened.
I'm talking about the... I'm sorry.
I'm going to bring it back here to the board. Is it the recommendation of the 3 board members that sit on what is the recommendation of the 3 board members that sit on the policy committee?
Can I ask a couple questions first? And we have a couple of our best minds. Jim, good to see you again. Curtis, always good. How did this start? We have an initial recommendation to delete this. Where did that come from is my first question.
I think Connie can answer that.
When Trustee DeMartini was approached by Jim Hohen, and so I did develop kind of like a timeline. And this actually started with a legal review of this particular policy. And the legal review said, not term for term, I've never said that. Term for term, certainly that doesn't exist. But what we need in terms of academic freedom is listed in our policy 4030, titled Academic Freedom. So the necessary text for academic freedom is listed there. So that's how it started, and that review I think was done in 2015. Okay. And then as a part of the regular comprehensive cycle, this policy entered the queue in 2017. It's gone through a 1.5 years worth of discussion. It came to the Policy and Procedure Committee 3 or 4 times, and then it went to the Academic Senate another few times. Professor Hohen did bring forward a resolution that was voted down, and it did go forward to District Council, where we have all of our constituent representatives there, had 2 readings there, and then came to the board for a first reading last month, and then
Okay.
Professor Hohen.
So at the Academic Senate, that was the close vote, whatever it was the purpose, did the prevailing side want this section to just come out? Was that their point of view?
And Jim can add his own, but I think the prevailing point of view is that any restriction, the biggest question is who gets to decide that question? And there's no satisfactory answer to that. And I think that's the major concern. We also said that bad teaching, it's an evaluative process. If you're doing the kinds of things that shouldn't happen in the classroom, that should be reflected in an evaluation. But the examples that were used, especially in the social sciences and the arts, where you use very controversial ideas, where you use art, and sometimes that may be offensive to some students, it certainly puts a pall over the ability to teach students to the best of our ability and the state of the art in those disciplines. So,
Okay, so let me just, if I could, and I was a philosophy student starting here with Ben Starr in 1980. So that's where I come from. As I go through most of these sentences by themselves, I don't see a contradiction with academic freedom. Am I missing something?
in which policy?
In 8067, as it
was written,
as it exists. So
as it exists.
YCCD shall maintain an intellectual environment that respects religious beliefs of all citizens. That's fine, right? I mean, religious worship services shall not be held, obviously. There shall be no attempt to destroy or weaken a student's faith. I guess maybe talking out loud, that's where we're, okay. All right, I got it. Okay. And then, that's really the one of the whole, of that entire code or section. Okay. I just needed to go back and walk through that. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, it was a discussion that happened months ago. I had no idea this discussion was happening today, so I did not come with my notes from the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
So I'll bring it back. So what?
Either way, none of us have that information as far as, other than the 3 board members.
Correct.
So I don't think we should do
Lynn?
anything with it at this time.
Is that the consensus of yourself and Leslie and Ann, who serve on the policy committee, is to pull it?
Well, I think with the controversy that we've just heard, how can we make any decision tonight? I mean,
So I guess my question is so we pull it, what's the process then? Connie? I mean, it's already been through a first reading with the board. So what do we do then?
So you can approve the deletion tonight. You can pull it for further conversation and look at it for a 3rd reading next month for deletion. Or you can send it back through the constituent review process with, change language and have it go back through the academic senates, both colleges. The YFA will hear it again. They also had a strong reaction to it the first time they heard it. So you can send it back through constituent review.
Isn't that what we suggested?
Yeah, at this point, I'm thinking that maybe it should go back to the board policy committee, because I think some of the concerns that were expressed tonight are, and there wasn't a chance to read the corrections, but I think that we might want to have a few points of why, even though it's difficult, why we being the 3 members, why we supported not eliminating this tonight, and bring that back to the full board. And then if the full board decides, we could send it back to academic senate, but I want to make sure that it's fairly covered, because I don't think it will be without some more details from the board.
I don't think we need, oh, go ahead, Abe.
I don't want to disagree with anything being said, but I think we have a process in place. And to me, to be fair to everybody involved, would be to send it back to the academic senate and start that process all over again so that it can be covered fully and not just decided by 3 or 4 people or 5 or 6 people.
It's got to go back
Yeah,
to the academic
I think
senate
that
at
would
some
be
point.
fair, and it would, in my opinion, it would satisfy both parties involved.
Alan has his hand up.
Yes.
I was at the Senate debate. I think it was a fine debate. And I was at the board policy meeting earlier in the week, and I want to clear up any concern that the board policy committee was not deferential and respectful of Senate prerogatives. I think it was very much so. And I did not hear that committee endorse the wording recommended by Professor Howland. And I did hear the committee members recognize that on a difficult issue like this, if we will have such a policy, the wording is very challenging. The devil is in the details, if you will. I think Curtis referenced that. I'm really glad to hear my academic senate president advocating so strongly for Senate purview, but I do have to say I believe the Senate was very respectful of Senate purview, and I don't feel that that is the problem here.
So what's the problem?
Well, I heard some, all right, you heard some controversy on the issues. I also heard some address of purview, board purview, Senate purview, and so on. And what I'm trying to say is I really don't think that's the issue. That I have heard various board members, including you, Trustee DiMartini, express your respect and support for Senate purview. And so if anybody's concerned that that's at issue here, or undermined here, well, I was at that committee and I don't think so. I don't think so. If the board wants the Senate to discuss something further, that is not the same thing as some kind of power struggle. I think Curtis' points were well taken, but I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding.
I've heard procedural review, I've heard send it back to the policy committee.
I heard mine, send it back to you.
Right, that's what I said, procedural review. Trying to quote what our person that knows right there is telling us to do. So I think we can still solve it if we just start from the beginning again and have it go through. So we'll pull 4.8 or 4-8067, pull it from the second reading, and we'll send it back for further policy review. So that solves that problem.
I would just
For now.
encourage both sides, for lack of a better term, to look at that proposal to the first paragraph. The second remains the same. The third doesn't seem like it's a problem. And I think that might do it unless I'm just not seeing something. So I just offer that up.
Okay. So we now have left the other remaining items on the proposed policy revisions for second reading for adoption. And those are listed on the agenda, posted agenda. So is there a motion to waive the second reading and adopt the proposed policy revisions as listed, with the exception of the one that was pulled?
Well, I just think we should add, and Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, that when the board policy committee went through the second readings, the only one that we wanted to even consider a change in was the one that we pulled.
Okay. So with that,
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
thank you. Moved by Trustee Hallinan, seconded by Trustee Beggs. Any further comments? Nope. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will move on now to 8.2, Board Policy, first reading. So you see those items there. You were given material in your board packet. Any conflict?
So before we go on, can I just
Absolutely.
just say thank you so much. You just finished chapter 4, the comprehensive review, and
Almost.
almost. Well, no, that's okay to pull one out, and we finished our comprehensive review.
There we go.
We got a really good look here tonight at some of the conversations that we have at each step along the process, and we have 2 hours in each one of those meetings. So you guys got about 10 or 15 minutes of those conversations. We actually have 2 hours of those once a month. So thank you guys so much for all of the work that you do. We have completed that comprehensive review. So that brings us to our second reading, or our first readings on our annual updates. These aren't in the chapters. These are things that we just need to update based on legal changes, and if we've found something operationally that we need to realign in policy or admin procedure. So you have 7 before you this evening, and as we talk through those at the board policy meeting, there were 6 that we had some questions on. So normally when I come to you and I say we want to make some revisions, or the board policy committee had asked for revisions, I give you a little sheet with some red and stuff. I don't have that for you because these are still at the question stage. So over the next month, I'm going to have some more information for the board policy committee where they can make a recommendation. So what I want to do is just really quickly step through some of our conversations and the questions we had there. If you look at 6,400 financial audits, on the policy, line 18, it talks about a written report for any spot audits would be made to the chancellor. So we talked about those written reports also being provided to the board finance committee, and then of course to the board of trustees, because they hold the ultimate responsibility there. So that was 6,400 financial audits. In hazardous materials, while the chair of that committee, Trustee DeMartini, reminds me that the board approves policies and not procedures. We still do discuss them. And so we discussed, this is all about putting Cal OSHA notices up, essentially, at different sites, and notifying our employees and folks who are in these sites what materials are there. And so we talked about who is it just YCCD that needs to post these? Do our contractors that come onto our campuses, do they need to post these? And so I'm getting those questions answered. We talked about notifying employees, and do we do that beforehand or after? And so we talked about some of those questions, which we will get answers to, and perhaps provide some recommended changes next month. And then going on to verification of eligibility for employment. We have listed in the AP, line 10, a United States passport or a resident alien card or an alien registration card. And so we just wanted some examples on the alien registration card, and trustees wanted some examples on those, and who might be using the alien registration card. And then in 7330, nepotism, in line 27 of the policy, it says when the district will make reasonable efforts to assign job duties. So that's when someone's already hired. And if there are spouses or, performing maybe the same job duties, or, family members, to minimize potential for creating an adverse impact on supervision, safety, security, or morale. And so the term morale came up as a question, and what does that mean? It's a little vague. Let's get a little bit more information around that. And then again on line 32, we talk about to refuse to place spouse in the same department. Does that really mean family member, not just spouse? So we have that conversation. And then on the AP, the last line, we said all disclosures additionally would be reported to the Board of Trustees and Chancellor. And so we said, could we get those in writing, is what the Board Policy Committee trustees had a question on. And then in the next one, communicable disease, 7330. We're just trying to get to a place where these things are a little bit easier to read. So we were looking at line 7. Where we talk about active tuberculosis unfitting the applicant to instruct or associate the students. So could we find a term that was a little bit more contemporary than unfitting, maybe a little bit easier to read. And then in 7336, the next one, certification of freedom from tuberculosis. In the AP, there was a request to look at some of the wordiness of the AP. And for example, in line 21, where we say are required to undergo the foregoing tuberculosis risk assessment, rather we would say something like are required to undergo a tuberculosis risk assessment. So just looking at some of the wordiness there. And then in the last one, 7-8059, that was one sentence and no recommended changes or questions on that one. So that's where we ended with our first reading conversations.
And I'd just like to add that we have these meetings on Monday prior to this board meeting, and the committee asked Connie to do some research, but we didn't expect her to have it all completed and ready for us for today. So she will give her a little bit of reasonable time to research those items.
Thank you, Connie.
I just want to make a quick comment on nepotism. The policy sounds a little squishy, make every reasonable effort, but the procedure is very clear. No employee shall exercise direct supervision over a person who is a family member. So for anybody who wants to know, that's there.
Okay. So maybe the policy should be a little, almost mimic the procedure? It'd be okay.
I think the policy can be a little squishy as long as the procedure is clear.
I wrote down that it was wishy-washy.
You did too, okay.
We're getting very articulate tonight, so let's, okay, is there a motion to approve, or that's the process, right, to approve the first reading? No, it's just the first reading. See, I'm still learning. We'll move on now to 8.3, the Modesto Junior College Measure E proposed budget adjustments. The recommended action of the Board of Trustees receives and approves the revised Modesto Junior College Measure E bond project budget adjustments attached to the August 8th, 2018 agenda.
So this relates to the Science Outdoor Educational Center project.